So here we go, scones part 2. I've got all the dry ingredients in the bowl, all mixed together, and now we're going to add the liquid. And the liquid in this case is an egg and some milk. And I've got about 1/4 of a pint of milk and an egg, and I'm going to put the egg in the milk. There it goes. And just give it a bit of a whisk. Okay. Now this is the crucial part when we're making scones. You can never tell exactly how much liquid you need because it depends on the flour, it depends on the humidity in the room. I might need a bit more, I might need a bit less. So I'm not going to put it all in at once. I'll probably put about 2/3 of it in and then give it a mix. Okay, and I can tell then if it needs any more. Okay, so just mixing it together. And like I said, it needs to be quite a wet dough so that it's quite sticky. There, and I think that's probably about the right. Can you see? It is quite sticky. It's not like a cake. It's more like a cake than a biscuit, perhaps. It's the easiest way to describe it. So I'm just going to flour my board to get the, because it is going to be quite sticky, so I do need to flour the board because it will, there we go, let's get all the mixture out. Okay. Now, as you can see, it is quite sticky. So I'm going to flour my hands a little bit, but you mustn't go mad, because if you do, you will knock all the air out and you'll end up with flat scones that don't rise up nicely. So just making sure. Now, like I said, we are not going to handle it too much, just knead it a little bit so it's not got cracks in it. Just a little bit more flour. There we go. And I'm not using a rolling pin. I am just going to just work it a little bit with my hands. There you go. And that's it. Okay. Now, it's a bit of... this is really, see how sticky it is. But don't be tempted to put more flour. Oops. It really is quite sticky. So I'm just going to flatten it slightly to the depth I want it. So the other mistake people make is to flatten it too much. You need it to be about 3/4 of an inch deep before you cut it. Okay, and I've hardly worked this at all, as you can probably see. Okay, so I've just been to wash my hands because they were a bit sticky, and now it's time to cut them out. Now, there's some rules about cutting out scones, and it depends if you like, if you fancy having a go in a competition. If you want to have a go in a competition, there are certain rules that you have to follow to present your scones, or you lose marks. This is quite fun. Now, you've got two kinds of cutters. I'm going to use this size. Now, you can have ones with a fancy edge, fluted edge, or plain ones like that. And it may be you prefer the nice decorative one, or you might prefer a plain one. But if you want to enter a competition, the only time you would use a fancy cutter like this is if you're doing fruit scones. If you're doing plain scones or savoury scones, you must use a plain one, plain cutter. Would you believe it? Anyway, that's just a little bit of trivia about scones. Now, this is the third golden rule, remember, when you're cutting out your scones, and this is really important. Okay, now, a good scone, when you serve it, if you've ever been to some fancy restaurant and had afternoon tea, a good scone has a break around the middle, around the what I call the equator of the scone. So you should just be able to break the scone apart without needing a knife. And the trick to doing that is when you cut out your scone, you put your cutter on and you push it down. And you don't do this, don't twiddle it about, you just lift it back up again and then you take your scone out and put it on your baking tray. There we go. Okay, if you twiddle it about, what you're doing is you'll compress the scone and you won't get that lovely break in the middle. So if you fancy your chances on the bake-off and they get you to do scones, just remember that. Okay, so I'm going to put these on here. And this really is quite a squidgy, sticky dough. I can even hear it when I put the cutter in. I can hear it squidging down. Can you see? I'm literally just pressing down. Now, what we've got to be really careful of here is when we collect up the scraps to make some more, that again we don't overhandle the dough. So I'm just going to pull it in as quickly as I can and flatten it out again, because the more we handle it, the worse it will get. A bit of flour on my cutter and down we go again. Not twisting it, just making sure it's gone through. There we go. Ooh, on there. Perhaps I'll get another couple out of this. Really important not to overwork that dough. It's really sticky, this is, but it's just right. There we go, there's another one. So I've got 6 now, might get 7 out of this. Oops. There we go, one more perhaps. I hoped I would have got 8, but I'm doing quite big ones. If I'd used a smaller cutter, I probably would have got 8 or 9. But anyway, there we go. I think, oops, put that in there. I might not need the cutter on this one. There we go, just in that goes. Okay, and that's them ready to go in the oven. Let me just wipe my hands. Now, when I said that I was going to make this recipe today, a few people on my Facebook group asked me about how to cook them in an Aga, because I did mention that it's gas mark 7, it's 220 degrees or 200 Van. But if you're cooking them in an Aga, the best place to put them is in the roasting oven. Aga people, you'll know what I'm talking about. In the roasting oven on the 3rd set of runners from the top. Okay, and they're going in there for 10 minutes, and that's the same if it's a conventional oven. It's 10 minutes, but I will set it for 8, and I'll have a look after 8 minutes. See you in 8. Okay, well there's the buzzer going, so let's have a look. I did actually check after 8 minutes, and I thought they needed a couple minutes more, so they have gone for the full 10 minutes, and here they are. There we are, look at that. Okay, so are they done? They look golden brown. The way to check is to have a look underneath. They're quite hot. And they're nice and brown underneath. Look, no soggy bottoms. And they sound hollow like bread does. Can you hear that? So that tells me that they're done. So I'm just going to leave them in the tray for a minute or so, just to cool off slightly, so I can handle them, and I'll get them out and put them on the cooling rack. Now, you might have thought when I put them in the oven I didn't actually glaze them, because we often hear about putting some milk or egg wash over the top of them. That's another little tip. Again, it's all about if you want to compete with if you want to go on the bake-off or anything like that. Fruit scones or any kind of sweet or plain scones are never glazed. They're always just put straight into the oven like this. You would only glaze a savoury scone. So that's another little tip for you. Lots of things about scones. It's quite interesting. So let's get them out. I'm going to pop them on the cooling rack. Now these ones here, can you see how they've all kind of broken around the middle? That's perfection where scones are concerned. The only one that hasn't done that really, or has tried to a little bit, is this one. And if you might remember, that was the last one that I did. That was just all the offcuts that I sort of put together. I didn't really cut it like I did the others. So all these quite come out nice, even shapes, even size, nicely risen, nicely split in the middle. That's a perfect scone. So we're going to have those for tea later with a bit of cream and jam. And here's another little bit of trivia for you. Do you like the Devon way or the Cornwall way? Do you put your cream on first or your jam on first? Do you know which one's which? Perhaps if you do, put a comment and tell us which one's your favourite. I'll give you a clue. I think the Devon one is the one where you put the cream on first, and the Cornwall one you put the jam on first. I like the Cornwall one myself because I think you can get more cream on that way. But anyway, whatever you like, that's how you can have your scones. So there you have it, fruit scones. Easy when you know how.